There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am your host, Nick, as always. We're back to talk an episode that you will not see for a couple weeks, but we're recording this like 2 weeks before, so it's really confusing. Time is a flux at this point, I guess you could say. So
hey, what if the Weeping Angels brought us back in time 2 weeks?
So that was the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone. As I go and cry myself in a corner. Damn it.
Transition there.
I look the same. What the fuck?
I know, right? I've gained a little bit of weight.
My Uranus cup moved 2 inches. Gasp.
Hey, I can finally pay my phone bill on time.
Yay.
I actually have money.
Yeah.
So
I never
we're
have
here.
money.
Just wait till the kids move out, Jacob. You'll have plenty of monies. You'll have $3 at least.
Something will happen where I won't have money. I'll have like a flat tire every week or something.
Aw.
I didn't have money before I had kids. Definitely don't have money after I had kids. And I don't think I'll never not have kids. Let's just be straight with that. Always gonna be here.
Yeah.
I keep making them.
Aw.
She keeps pushing it. I keep making it.
Okay.
Supposed to push it.
Anyway, so
That's how you
Twilight
get
Zone.
yeah, so we're here to talk Rod Serling's famous series that is so popular that even I have nightmares about it sometimes. So you know how this works. This episode that we're going to talk about, actually, before I should say this before we begin, we are on audio feeds like iTunes and Audio Boom and Anchor and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and the Riddler and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm just naming stuff in my room. But we're also on Google Play and of course I don't know, whatever that Amazon Music, if I said that already. But today we're talking another videotaped episode, the fourth of 6 episodes. To me, this is probably the best of the videotape episodes so far. My personal feeling on it is the inspiration for a really popular horror franchise that actually, as of this recording, got a director for the 6th film in the franchise, I think, or the 7th film or whatever.
Be honest here though, that news is for the Almost Awesome show, which airs weekly. That's bi-weekly, or that's 2 times a week.
That was 2 weeks ago, according to this as this posting.
It's
So
old news now.
I know they've already announced the 10th film in the franchise at this point. So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, so this is the inspiration for, of course, Final Destination, which is a very popular franchise, but we'll talk about that, kind of where it leads and stuff like that. But of course, I'm always representative and here with, of course, Jacob and Triv from Trivial Theater and Jacob from Jacob Andrews Reviews, and also a returning guest who decided that he was happy enough to come back because he loved dealing with our insanity. So that, of course, is Dan from TYTD, which apparently I can't.
TYTD.
Yeah, apparently I can't pronounce your YouTube channel, Dan. But welcome back, of course. How you doing? How's everything? How's life in the Brits?
Good. It's good to be back. I just wish that Triv hadn't hit me on the back of the head and tied me up and dragged me back here. I would have happily come, but she was just like, no, you've got to be here. And I was like, I'm going. And she just kept sort of hitting me on the head and time. It was a very surreal experience. I'm doing very well, thank you. The ropes are a little bit tight, but I think if she slackens them off a bit, I think we'll be okay. I'm looking forward to this because I'm a big video head. I like the videotape feel and vibe. So I'm looking forward to talking about a great episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and I felt this was a good episode because you're big into like the horror realm of movies and stuff like that. So I figured this would be another good one. This isn't people falling out a window with a camera and stuff like that. So this is woman berating her shitty agent and stuff like that. So but Jacob and Triv, yeah, right. But Jacob and Triv, how the hell are you guys doing? How is life? Much better, I'm hoping, than the other night. So I don't know. Triv, do you still have a headache?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Cool.
Yes.
I'm great.
Yeah, you're great. He's like, I'm great. I'm wonderful.
I'm good.
Blink once for yes, twice for no. I can't do anything because I'm tied to a chair, but once I get loose, we'll get out of here, Jacob. We'll get out of here together.
Okay, first off, you asked to be tied up. Secondly, you told me you were into bondage.
No, I said I was into fondage, being fond towards people. It's the British
Not being
way.
fondled? Okay, damn it.
I didn't even get asked.
I mean, if you come on over here, Jacob, I could try and fondle you, but that might not be so good with I don't want to get anyone in trouble. So yeah, that wouldn't be good.
My
and of course,
she's kind of crazy.
Nick, do you want some fondlage?
Not really, because that might make me excited for the hurricane coming through here soon. So yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Well,
is
it
that
would have
what they call
already
it now?
passed by that point.
I guess it would have. Yeah.
Here comes the hurricane. Nick's bringing the hurricane, baby.
Oh no!
This right here, this behind me is the upcoming hurricane that's going to hit Florida here soon. So
Blimey.
wackiness.
Could I get some fondue-age? It's like fondage, but it's just basically somebody yells really degrading things at you while you dip some bread in some nice cheese. I'm
There
okay
you
with that.
go.
Fondue.
Or you dip them in some nice cheese and then fondle them.
Nice fondue.
Fondage them.
Fondue,
So clearly we're referencing the new episode that we're going to talk about, of course, because fondage and berating is, of course, and tying up, is part of 22. So
Somebody help us out of here. We have fallen down a hole and we do not see a way out of it.
So we're in five. What is it? 5 characters.
The people in the trash can.
No, it's not a trash can.
It
You want okay.
Alex.
You want Alex to come after your ass because she will track you down and cut off your nuts.
Damn, why we gotta go? I mean, we gotta escalate it to there. That quick?
Yes.
Jeez.
That is a sublime just don't do that. Anyway,
This has become a very horny
very
opening
violent.
to a podcast. I'm concerned
Horny and
wherever I
violent.
turn up, the horniness seems to follow us like some kind of stank, and I'm in.
It's a
let's
good
be
What's going on here?
honest. Have you watched this episode?
Put some stank on it.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fairly honest, after the invaders, Jacob is just like, my job's done. I'm just gonna let it loose.
No, my job is not done. There's still work to be done. God's work still needs to be done on this podcast.
Jacob's actually like he's actually from the Blair Witch Project. He's just waiting in the corner. He's turned us all around, just waiting to execute us so he can take over and put a certain episode at the bottom of the list that apparently some person named Alex might come and kill him for. So I don't know.
Just like the
I hope it's-
Crusades.
I hope it's not that Perchance to Dream one, because I saw that quite recently. And
Oh
I had a lot
yeah,
of
we got to
thoughts
talk about that before we get to the episode. I've been waiting to hear Dan's official opinion on whether this is going to end the full relationship of the podcast or it's going to turn Jacob into a true Dan lover. I don't know.
Dan
yeah.
Levin.
So, well, I mean,
Dan Zealot. We'll say Dan Zealot.
So yeah, Trip very kindly took me to one side a couple of nights ago and showed me Perchance to Dream, which was my second ever episode of the Twilight Zone. And you know what? I had a really good time with it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was genuinely a quite entertaining episode. And it reminded me quite heavily of the 1962 film Carnival of Souls. It was just it was short and sweet. It got to the point. And I just really liked the visuals. It was a very entertaining visual episode. And I think I kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than the camera one on reflection. It's okay, I'll see myself out. The only thing that kind of threw me a little bit was the back projection. There's a scene where they go on the roller coaster and there's some back projection that looks a little bit shonky, but even then it kind of, because I come from a school of German expressionism and kind of surreal visual images, that episode very much kind of pulled me in and just made me feel very comfortable as a fan of sort of 1920s and 30s cinema. I'm not saying that the plot was particularly groundbreaking, but visually it looked very nice. It kind of won me over.
In all honesty, the only thing I had a problem with it was, everything. And it just it really pulled me in, and I mean, didn't even like lube things up with a finger and just popped the plug right in there. And It's an oversized plug.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that episode with you guys because I need
Oh,
to get in
oh
depth. I
no.
know we don't have time.
No,
It doesn't
Jacob was not-
exist. It doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
Jacob wasn't
man.
even on the episode at the time. He didn't come into what,
Oh,
episode
shit.
12 or something, or episode 11.
It was in the
Episode
dark
11.
times.
The days before Jacob.
Hey, every great
literally
thing
one
has to start
episode before.
somewhere. Yeah.
So what was your big bugbear with it then? Just out of interest. I'm sorry I'm derailing this completely, but I am curious.
No.
Just like, what was the thing that, like, there's got to be one thing that you were like, this is the thing that specifically annoyed me the most about it.
Honestly, the episode itself doesn't annoy me. It's just not good. I mean, the end of the episode, I like where the episode went. I like the idea, the story, the whole idea behind the episode. I'm like, that's fine. It was the execution, the whole nightmare scenes and all that. I was like, what the fuck? That's fucking stupid. I was just bored. I mean, I got the idea. Catwoman, Liz Taylor, is coming to kill this guy in his dreams, and it's because he's fatigued or whatever, maybe, and then he like jumps out a fucking window. I mean, okay, that's fine. I felt like they like just drug it out way too fucking long on all these like the surrealness of it. And I like surreal shit, but like it just was boring. I was just kind of like, come on. And if we were doing that episode today and there was no history there, I would have just been like, yeah, I didn't really like this one. It's not that great. I would have like, maybe not the very bottom, but I'd honestly, it would be much further down. The thing that pisses me off about this episode is that it is so high. And each week when I'm sitting here trying to rank something, I'm like, okay, that was a pretty solid episode. It's like, I think it's better. I would put this at number 20, but Chance to Fucking Dream is there. And it's definitely better than that one. And it's like, I have slowly gained a hatred for this episode because it is always that one where I'm like, yeah, I'm happy with right here. Oh, fuck, there's the Chance to Dream. It's better than that one. So in all honesty, the episode is not awful. It's not great. It is not like, it's on the lower end of mid-tier, in my opinion. I mean, in all honesty, it's on the lower end of mid-tier. It's just that it's been sitting there taunting me all this time.
And maybe in a year's time, once you guys have got a few more episodes under your belt, you could do like an amnesty special where you can kind of argue your case to move things around a little bit.
We've discussed it, but I don't think they'll allow it.
Hey, if we're allowing things, I know exactly where Monsters Are Doing Maple Street is going. You can come back now, Triv. You're allowed to come back.
Come out of your hole.
But yeah, I enjoyed Perchance to Dream. I thought it was okay. I probably do agree with you, Jacob. I think the ending was a bit abrupt. I think it could have ended better. But as somebody who, when it comes to film, I'm a very visual person and I can be quite forgiving on a script. I thought it managed to do quite a lot with a very modest budget for what it was working with. I mean, I know that, shadows and very dark lit sets can be your friend, but yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of ironic, kind of funny if you think about it, because we're going to be talking about an episode that has dream sequences and nightmares, and it's kind of perfect, actually. I don't know if Jacob's going to like this episode now. I'm a little worried because I really like this episode. And that episode, of course, is...
I have something against dreams, per se. Like
no, it's just, it's funny.
I hate those dream episodes. But I hate the most that goddamn Freddy Krueger.
That guy's looking sleepy. I'm going to start marking it down if he goes any further.
I don't have something against dream episodes in particular. I actually like some of surreal stuff, but it's just
I was just thinking as you were talking about Perchance to Dream, this is an episode that kind of does a little bit of the same thing, a little bit, with its kind of nightmarish elements and stuff like that. But this episode is season 2, episode 17. It's called 22, directed by Jack Smight, written by Rod Serling. The story that's based off a story that's based off another story. It's called Famous Ghost Stories by Bennett Cerf, which is also based off a story called The Bus Conductor by E.F. Benson from the Pall Mall magazine. Production code 173-3666. Ooh, 3666. Original air date February 10th, 1961. So this is indeed the Valentine's Day episode. Go figure.
Nice.
This is the way the agent.
Hubba hubba.
Because there's some scantily used dialogue in this episode. But this, of course, stars Barbara Nichols, the Doctor from Lost in Space, Fred Wayne, Arline Sachs, Mary Adams, and Wesley Lau. But the Doctor, of course, is Jonathan Harris, who is a famous actor in his own right, as well as Barbara Nichols. Okay, so this episode, like I said, is an inspiration for Final Destination. There is a lot of a lot of DNA in Final Destination with this episode, just on its kind of story and how it plays out. Knowing that, or maybe you didn't know that, or I don't know offhand. I think I've talked about it a couple times, but going into this episode, Dan, did you know this was like inspired by Final Destination, or did you go in realizing after you watched it?
I believe actually yourself and Triv both made me aware that there was an inspiration for Final Destination. And one of the things that I actually, because I was going in expecting it to be similar to how Final Destination actually works, and actually having watched the episode, it almost ends where Final Destination would typically start. Which, you know,
unless you're the fifth movie.
I quite enjoyed that. Yes.
Actually, that's good. Yeah.
But it's been a very long time since I've watched the Final Destination films. I saw the first 3 or 4 when they came out, and then after that kind of drifted a little bit. And I need to get back to watching them, to be honest, at some point. So this has kind of inspired me to start looking for a nice Blu-ray box set to have a little dip in, because it's got to be about 10 years since I've seen one. So
have you not seen the 5th one?
No, I've only seen up to part 3.
Oh, so you don't get what I just said. The 5th one.
Yeah, the 5th one is
it's not amazing. It's like all the Final Destination sequels. I know this is derailing here, but it's fine. It's entertaining. The ending of that one, though, it was a clever ending.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say it's the third from the sun of Final Destination movies?
Yeah, because all their endings, this one had a different ending than the other ones.
Very much.
So yeah. I wouldn't say that, because I like the rest of the movie too. And we're talking about Final Destination now. Besides the second one, I've enjoyed all of them.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't like the second one?
What was second one? Was that
I like some of the kills in the second one, like the little kid and the fence.
Is it the
and all
one with
that.
like the glass and stuff?
Yeah, it's the one where the baby and all that stuff. It tried to get too much.
Yeah,
it had like, you got to have a baby, or you don't. You could do this and that and blah. I was like, no, just kill people.
Yeah, it had one of the best like car accident scenes. Like
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the car accident.
Was number 4 the one with the movie theater?
Yeah, 3 was the 3 was the no, 3 was the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Right.
4
was the NASCAR
racetrack. Yeah, NASCAR.
So 5 was the movie theater.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 5 was the newest. The newest one was the movie theater.
Because 4 had
the good ending.
4's ending was recorded or was filmed at Universal Orlando. So I remember that very well, in the coffee shop or whatever shop that was. But anyways, back to 22.
Cocky shop.
The cocky shop, yes.
Yes.
Cack shop.
Yeah.
But with that said, I know Jacob probably hasn't seen this for quite a while, but me telling you is an inspiration for Final Destination. Did you see where it was going at all? When you were watching it?
I didn't remember any details about this episode, but I was aware going into it that it was, like you said, it was inspiration for Final Destination. So no, not until you get to the end. When you get to the ending parts, that's when I was like, here's what's going to happen. But there's a lot of stuff that's telegraphed that you suddenly pick up on. Even if I didn't know it was Final Destination, I would be like, I mean, knowing that it's inspiration for Final Destination gives you some very specific idea of where it's going. But even without that, leading up to the ending, there's like this one big reveal there at the very end that like I saw coming a mile away. That's without any of the Final Destination stuff. I was like, yep, it's this is who she's about to see and hear. And I think they knew that because the music builds it up and drums it up. But I think everybody's expecting that to happen, then it does, and then the other thing happens. So no, I mean, no, I didn't. Through the episode where she's in the hospital, no, I didn't know specifically where it was going. But once you get to the place that she ends up at, all the pieces fell together, and I was like, yeah, this is what's going on. And I see how it's related to that.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Trev?
I remembered parts of this episode. I didn't actually make the connection until you said something about it being like the inspiration for Final Destination. But yeah, you pretty much when as things go along, you go, okay, yeah. And then my main clue to that was the tiger.
Really?
I'm kidding. Sorry.
I was just like,
What?
I
Did I
figured
miss
you were
something?
right.
Did you not see
Is it
the
Nichols
tiger
like,
walking
I don't want to
walking through
sound
in
dumb.
passing?
Yeah, I'm just going
Continue
with.
so I can speak to you about this.
Yeah, no, I'm like, Trib.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Dan. I think I need a replacement
I
for
picked
a
up on that
podcast
as well. And I'm the guy who's like, what?
Sorry. I had
the
to
hell
I
are you
just
talking
it
about?
was
I don't know what.
it was such a random like, oh hey, look, here's a tiger. It's like there's no correlation. Like it's
It-
just like a yeah. I know
Well,
it's
just
teddy
meant,
bear.
yeah.
Just her having dolls and stuff like that. I mean, I understand people have mementos and stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't know how old this woman is. I don't know. Are women more prone to having like keepsakes like this when they're like older ages?
Well, it
I
would
mean,
have worked.
I know men are. At least unless Dan. I don't know. You could yell at me or something like that. Do you keep mementos like this or
He
Jacob?
keeps a box of pieces underneath his pillow.
Well, it would have worked if because the episode, and I don't know if it was trying to say something or if it was just erratic. Like part of the episode, her character came across as that stereotypical 50s and 60s
Yeah.
dumb broad that's in movies that she's like, oh yeah, hey daddy, help me, daddy, and like it would have gone along with that, like she's a fucking idiot. But then other parts of it, she was like normal.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh,
Hmm.
this is fucked up. But then so I was like, is this just inconsistent, or is it trying to show that that's an act? Because she is, more or less an actress because she's the dancer. I was like, is that whole oh daddy daddy thing, is that an act? Is the episode deeper on those levels, trying to say, yeah, that's her. That's her putting on a performance. This is really her when she's like deep in the thick of the scary part. That's her. She's for real. So
Yeah.
I was, and maybe because the guy brought her the tiger, and maybe she's just playing into the whole act of being like that fucking idiot.
Well,
And
this was the
taking
thing because I
tiger
mean, but as the episode went on, because obviously Serling, I don't want to spoil the opening of the episode, but Serling kind of says that it's going to be playing around with dreams and reality, and kind of you have to kind of make a judgment on what's real and what isn't as the episode goes on. So all the way through it, whenever she was kind of flicking characters like that, or there was emphasis on the toys, I was, having my sort of film theory brain on trying to find symbolism. I was thinking, what does the tiger represent? Is acting this way in this scene supposed to be an indication that it's a dream, or is it supposed to be a reality of this indication? And by the end of it, all I could really come up with was it probably didn't happen, apart from the ending, which probably did. There wasn't really any, like, it didn't really, I was expecting something a bit more complex from the symbolism in the film, in the episode. And I just couldn't find anything that I could grab onto. There was no one thing
Except
that I
for the
could kind of
obvious
look at and
stuff.
go, well, yeah. And at first I was like, the tiger, okay, well, does the tiger symbolize something? Is it like some kind of representation of the emotion or the feelings at the time? And I went and looked through and couldn't find anything online about what that could possibly connote. Nobody really bought it up. So I just kind of, in the end, I just kind of accepted it for what it was on face value, which is, I think probably the best way to take it, really, apart from the obvious stuff, as you say, Jacob.
Yeah, I don't think there was any other semblance. I mean, to any of the stuff, I couldn't find anything.
Nah,
I came up with nothing. It was just
there
what it was,
honestly-
besides the stuff they put in your face.
And honestly, there's really not. There is more of like this woman is being mistreated, but she stands up for herself. And I'm guessing the clown is
Does
like
she?
I don't know. She puts him under the coals, under the rakes, and on the whatever the fuck it is.
She talks back to him, but she really, her agent. She talks back to him, but she's still like, it's like that marriage. It's kind of like a marriage. Like obviously they're not married, but like it kind of comes across like that marriage of like, there's the husband that's like, look at me, I got a hot wife, and she's like, again, okay, fine, like
She
they
talks back,
tolerate,
but she accepts her fate. That,
Exactly.
where I am
exactly.
anyway.
Like that's her best. That's the best that she can get. The one thing I did come across, and maybe this was me looking weird, but there was so much emphasis on her, like, and obviously it was the same thing rolling time and time again, but she's always like touching the side of her face, kind of like holding herself in a bit. Yeah, I kind of got the idea, like a nervous tick or like a little kid would do. So I think there was something of she was trying to be like hardcore, dancer chick, but there is
have
some
a
of
breakdown. So I mean, it's all about her
I
breakdown.
figured that's just how they acted. They're like back then they'd be like,
That
I
is
like
true.
that.
That is true. There
Yeah.
was a lot of that too. So.
And of course, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. She's holding an Annabelle doll, so I mean, clearly it's the Annabelle doll that is causing all these problems. So, but it basically really just kind of opens up with the nightmare that she has a couple times in this episode, where she wakes up and we hear the ticking of the clock, and I made a point at the end of the episode of the clock being at like 8:15. Is there ever a clock that we see that says specific time of
Maybe that's
when
what
she
time
gets
that
up?
plane's leaving. I didn't catch that, but maybe that's what it is.
Well, that's what
I
I was
was
gonna
gonna
say. Is there a
say-
clock in the hospital that says that specific time? Because there's things that plot where the episode's officially gonna end with, like the glass breaking and the ticking noise, and just kind of little subtle differences of, like, the nurse we don't see until the end of the nightmare. But I didn't know if there's a clock that actually said a specific time or anything.
So there were 3 numbers specifically in the dream that came out. There was 22, which is, obviously in the airport.
Yeah.
There's 8:15, which is also on the clock in the airport, because she hears the clock noise and that gets louder, and that's the time that's on there. The other one that I couldn't find was her room number, which keeps turning up repeatedly in
305.
the cine, 305. Yeah. And I couldn't find what that was. I mean, I didn't know whether it was maybe a seat number or something like that, but that was the only other number that kept recurring that I couldn't place.
Because basically it follows, as Dr. Smith talks about in the episode, her dream follows the same pattern, which is very interesting, because if you know anything about dreams, we sometimes will dream the same thing, but it never follows a pattern, which makes it even more Twilight Zone-y or spooky or something like that, where she wakes up, she hears the ticking of the clock, she breaks the glass, she gets up and she walks out of the room and sees a nurse that we don't see her face going down the elevator. And of course it goes down to the basement, and she goes down there and she walks towards the morgue, which says 22, which becomes very important to the whole entire story, which is what the episode is titled. And this random night nurse comes out. It's like, room for one more, honey. And of course she does Liz Powell, who's Barbara Nichols, does your typical screams, and because of course she heard Rod Serling talking in echo form, as she screams and runs away. But I have to ask, before we get into the opening narration, what you guys think about, like, that kind of setup, because it doesn't give you a lot of information, but if you really pay close attention, there is a lot of, like, not Easter egg, but a lot of stuff being placed as kind of where the episode is going to eventually end, because with the payoff and stuff like that. But what do you guys think about this first nightmare, which ends up being similar to the second nightmare, but for the most part, this is what she's having, 6 nights in a row for her mental breakdown at the moment?
Oh, I thought it was very well handled, although I got quite distracted because the actual bit where she goes down into the elevator and goes into the morgue, there's a deleted scene in Hellraiser 2 that is literally almost shot for shot exactly the same. There's a bit where they go into the hospital, they go down to the morgue, and it's literally like a shot for shot recreation, only instead of it being a nurse coming through the doors at the morgue, it's Pinhead. So I was just sat there going, is this Hellraiser 2? This is Hellraiser 2. Damn you, Clive Barker.
We'll show you such sights.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was surprisingly well handled. It's very shadowy, and I like the use of chiaroscuro lighting. The VHS the videotape quality doesn't really do it justice, I think. Film is much more forgiving with shadows and light, whereas tape is lower resolution, and as a result, the light is not handled as delicately as it could be. But outside of that, I thought it was quite well handled. Very oppressive atmosphere, I found, for most of it, which I quite enjoyed. So yeah,
I thought the tape side of this, when it came to the real world parts that they're filming or taping, like it wasn't too in your face. I didn't notice it as much. They did a good job of lighting that, or I don't. It's probably the lighting. But when they went into the surreal moments, like Dan said, that's when it really stood out. When it went into the dream sequences and it was a bit more surreal, and the movements, the camera was moving a lot more erratically, and also the lighting was much more harsh and just kind of out there. That's when I was like, ooh, yeah, that's videotape. It didn't do as well in those moments.
No, absolutely. Well, I was going to say one of the things that would probably be the reason for that is when they're filming the longer conversational scenes where it's just one location, the way they film it on tape the way they record it on tape is they'd have a 2 to 3 camera setup, and those cables would feed back to a booth, and somebody would literally in real time be live flicking between the cameras that were set up in key positions. What they'd do is, rather than do it like film where they'd stop and start because of the cost of recording on tape, they'd literally just treat it like a theatrical piece almost. So they'd have the cast run through a take as if they were performing it on stage, and then literally just cut live between the cameras to create it. Because if you notice watching the episode back, you can see like little sort of zzz whenever they cut, and that's not like a tape error. That's literally them flicking from camera 1 to 2 to 3. So it was very involved, but they had to keep the lighting very flat in the more surrealist sections because they're more sort of focused on a single or a 2 camera setup. They could kind of afford to be a bit more creative, but because they didn't want to fuck up the lighting too badly on broader scenes in case there was a bad take or something, they'd literally just set it as flat and white as they possibly could and then click go and just hope for the best.
Wow, I never knew that actually.
I didn't know
Learn
that.
something new every day.
I know they did that with like live shows and stuff. I didn't realize they did that with like a pre-recorded like this.
Yeah. So the similar thing happened with classic Doctor Who, 60s Doctor Who. They treat it pretty much as a theatrical performance, and they'd have like say 6 scenes, and 2 or 3 might be a bit more complex, but the 2 or 3 which would make up the bulk of the episode, it would be treated like a theatre production. It's good, and I actually did some maths for this episode because it's just the way I roll. In the 60s, they were shooting on things like 2-inch quad tape, and I found out that would cost approximately $220 American per hour. If you inflated that to today's costs, it would work out at something approaching $2,210 per hour recorded. So they genuinely couldn't afford to screw up takes. So they'd just like play it as safe as possible to get through stuff because it cost a lot of money to do do-overs.
That's why the lateness of the hour is so terrible, because they just one take and they're like, okay, good, next. So
yeah. Basically,
that is a thing too. Like, of the tape episodes that we've had, like obviously lateness of the hour was probably the worst one. I don't know, this one kind of sits in the middle as far as the quality of it goes.
Oh, I'm maybe the first to admit there are points in this that look good, like you guys, like Jacob and Dan said, and there's some points where like they were talking earlier where it's just like, I don't know if Rod Serling was echoing, if that was a mistake or they wanted that on purpose, but there are points where like they'll edit it and it's just like so choppy and so weird, and it feels like they're either rushed or they just didn't have the budget. I don't know, but it was super weird. So
yeah, I mean, the thing that bothered me more than anything else was trying to figure out the archival state of the elements for it, to be honest. The actual sort of the episode itself was for 60s TV was fine, but like the copy that Triv showed me was from the DVD set, and it was full of tape errors. There was just like glitches and random rolling tape bits, and I was kind of sitting there going, well, was it like a missing episode that they found off a home recording, or was it just really badly stored, or was it unremastered? Because like for the older Doctor Who sets, they do something called vid firing, which is where they take telecine. Sorry, let me take a step back. So when they were selling these things to domestic markets, they would do something called telecine, which is basically where they would play the videotape version of the episode into a flat CRT screen and film it with a 35 or 16mm camera, and they would capture the tape onto film basically, and they could use that then to sell it to countries that didn't have the capability to play tape. What they would then do for Doctor Who when they found these film prints back, because obviously a lot of episodes of Doctor Who were missing, but they do a process called vid firing, which is where they take those film prints and scan them back in using a computer software that basically bought the frame rate from 25 to 50, I think it is, which is standard videotape playback for those sort of 2-inch quad tapes, and it'd restore them to sort of videotape quality. And that wasn't present here. So I don't know whether they literally just went back to the archive and went, well, have we got this? Okay, dump it on and we'll play it. Or whether, but they didn't do any remastering on it as far as I could see. If they did, it was very minimal.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, that was me.
No, you're good. I'm learning stuff about this episode that I didn't even know. So I love this episode, but I mean, what about you guys, like on this like first nightmare? I mean, do you guys have any additional thoughts on it, or do you have anything you want to say about it?
I thought it did a good job of setting up the episode.
Yeah, same.
Like,
it definitely gave that. Yeah, good. Sorry.
I was intrigued. It just did a good job of as she was going down. At first, I was kind of like, "What's going on? This lady's just walking around." I didn't realize she was in a hospital too. I thought she was in an apartment. I was like, she goes to she's at the fucking the elevator, whatever. By the time she got downstairs, and she's like creeping around, I was like, "Okay, what's going on here?" I thought it did a good job there with setting it up, keeping me, just curious. The first time.
The first time, the first time, the fucking first time.
Feels like the very first time.
Well, that's the funny part. Like, so we have this woman who is, that we think she's the night nurse. She's in this nightmare, and of course, we see her run back to the elevator. But like I said earlier, when Dan was giving us some great information, I have to ask, like, was Rod Serling, like, was this a problem with the audio, or were they trying to make it feel like he was inside the underneath, or he was inside the building? Like, it goes from him echoing to him just talking normally. I'm like, is it just a camera problem? Did they not have sound work? I mean, this is like, it was weird. I don't know what's happening, but I mean,
because when they do that swoosh, it's not, or when there was a point when they're panning the camera over, I think that there's a cut.
Oh, okay.
It's not, he's not, I don't think that's the actual, I could be wrong, but I think there's a cut in there. And when that cut happens, that's when he's there.
Right.
And they're
I was going to say as well,
in audio camera or in camera audio.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well, depending on how well kept the archive is, because this was another thing that kind of baffled me, because after this episode, I went and actually tried to look up what the sort of archive status of the Twilight Zone was like, because I know Star Trek, they like hermetically sealed all the episodes away for like 50 years, so they had pristine prints.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they didn't do that with the Twilight Zone, so I was just wondering whether like they'd like missing episodes, or if there was like they'd had to recover stuff from domestic recordings or stuff like that. The only thing that I could think in terms of the audio quality and why it dipped was maybe they sort of did a patchwork approach using off-air domestic recordings. So again, with Doctor Who, this is the best reference I can do for stuff like this, is they had fans who would literally record the audio off the telly because it was the only chance they'd have to hear the episodes again, because once they were played. And the result of that is when they came to remastering them, they actually found that some of the off-air recordings from the time that these fans had done were better quality than what they had in the archive, so they'd just use that.
Oh my God.
So
the Doctor Who restoration project for other older episodes is crazy. That show's a shit. Not the show itself, but like the keeping of that show was a shit show. It's like they just said fuck it and like didn't do it. They didn't keep them around at all.
One of the best stories I ever heard about it was there was a fan, I think his name was Ian Levine. He went to a meeting with a BBC executive who, whilst greeting him and sort of having this meeting, had something hanging out of his desk. And when he looked over to see what it was, so he'd got like a film print in his desk, and he was literally just breaking frames off to pick his teeth with and throwing it away.
God.
He sat there going, that could have been anything. That could have been like a lost episode of the Avengers or Doctor Who or whatever, because he was working in the archive department, and he's just literally there just ripping slides of these films off and just doing shit with it. It's just, it was crazy. Back then, basically, it was a case of, we don't have room, let's throw something out. And that was quite literally how it worked. It just chucked stuff to make space.
Well, and there's so
episodes of Doctor Who that if you haven't seen them, you'll never see them. They're just gone forever. They're gone. They do not exist.
Well, and that happened a lot with, like, you look at like like really super early cinema. A good chunk of that is gone because the type of film it was done on, super flammable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was
no, go ahead.
There was there's a story from here in my state where this guy ran a theater back in the 1800s, and then all of these prints were stored because they were like between 30 seconds and about 10 minutes, and it was moved from one place to another in the 80s, I think. And this one guy found all this stuff, and it was just labeled whatever the name of the people were and crap. And he opened it up and he saw all these old prints. And like, he went to take them to like the state college that kind of does some stuff with film. And they were like, okay, first off, you need to leave those outside because there's a good chance they're so old that they're going to explode. Where have they been kept? He's like, oh, they've been kept in a random basement underneath someone's house for like 80 years or something like that.
Well, going off that, there was the idea of, I think one of the most significant stories I ever heard was I can't remember where it was or who found it, but somebody was digging through film one day and found like a not alternate, but a copy of lost footage for Metropolis.
Oh,
And
wow.
they found it, and that's why they were able to if you ever watch the movie like Restored, it looks like different. There's like different cuts and stuff that look different, but it actually allowed the film to be truly restored and truly, because back in the day they're like, we need to make this like an hour and 20 minutes, and they were able to restore it to like 3 hours long. So I mean, finding those things is like, you never know what you're going to find in your
Oh, yeah.
basement or someone's basement. So
It's
Well,
kind of
it's
like when
like-
they found the missing prince and the extended version of the Super Mario Brothers movie. You know, it's
Yes. Hey,
I reviewed
funnily
that.
enough,
I'm one of the few people that have actually seen that because it's not available anymore. That was
it's
my
not?
claim to fame.
damn.
No, you can't. It was available. It was only up for a very short period of time, but it's down. It's been down.
Yeesh.
I watched it as soon as it popped up, and I did a review of it.
So 22.
yeah, as you can see,
We haven't even done the opening.
no, I was
narration
gonna say,
yet.
as you can see, I stood up, so this will probably not be in the episode. And Jacob, with that said, 30 minutes later, go ahead and hit us with the opening narration.
Sure. This is Miss Liz Powell. She's a professional dancer, and she's in hospital as a result of overwork and nervous fatigue. And at this moment, we have just finished walking with her in a nightmare. In a moment, she'll wake up and we'll remain at her side. The problem with this is that both Miss Powell and you will reach a point where it might be difficult to decide which is reality and which is nightmare. A problem uncommon, perhaps, but rather peculiar to the Twilight. Did I say that right? Yes. Peculiar to the Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah, what she said.
I thought I misread peculiar. I thought it said particular, but no, it says peculiar.
I do that a lot where I'll be reading and I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Oh wait, I just read it wrong.
Yeah.
It's just like, goddamn. Okay, so most of this episode deals with her in a hospital room with her tiger and her Annabelle doll. She's sitting there just kind of like freaking out. Of course, she's a stripper. No, she's a dancer, and she
No, she a
is-
stripper.
well, yeah. I want to talk about that here in just a second. But so we have a character played by Fred Wayne. He apparently has 2 D's in his name for some reason, because Fred is spelled with 2 D's. He plays a character named Barney Kabner, and at first I thought it was her husband because the way she talks to him, she calls him she says Barney a lot. She's like the nervous man, the $4 room guy, where she just says
Bonnie.
his name. Yeah, Bonnie. She's like Audrey and Little Shop of Horrors or something like that. But
She's got a very Marilyn Monroe quality about her, I think. Just the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
that she speaks.
Well, that was that whole
Um,
thing back then. Is if you watch like some of those older movies, like from the 50s and 60s, when it had that, it's like always portrayed the female blonde bombshell broad as just kind of like an idiot. There's even, what was it, Born Yesterday? Is that the one
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's
Julie
got
or
the-
with
yeah.
Judy Holiday, yeah.
And she's like, she
Or-
talks like an idiot, but then you find out she's actually not, and she kind of learns some stuff. Yeah, that whole stereotype right there. That's what I was talking about. I didn't know if the show was going for that, but they just, couldn't be concerned with making sure it was consistent across the board, or if
He has,
it
like,
was
a-
trying to
a
say
very
that,
squeaky
hey, that's an
voice.
act, but she
Mhm.
doesn't always. Sometimes she doesn't. And that's why I was like, are they trying to show that it's much like her performance on the stage? This is she herself is an act.
yeah.
I don't know, because she mainly talks like that when Fred's around.
Because he calls her kitten, so I thought this was. I honestly, before
A
I
lot.
found out, I found
Yeah.
out this. Before I found out it was her agent, I'm like, okay, so this is her husband. But then she starts talking about how he never, he like barely visits her, and I'm like, that's so weird. I'm like, I don't think a husband. I honestly, I don't. I'm not from the '60s, so I don't know. But I'm assuming the husband would actually visit every once in a while. But you find out, of course, it's the agent. But he keeps calling her
Pimp.
kitten, stuff like that, and basically. There was a sexicon word in here, and I can't remember where it was. Bonnie calls the woman kitten, enters, says Bonnie. He thinks Bonnie didn't show up, like a
Stripper.
cuckoo. Yeah, like a cuckoo. That's a sexicon word, actually. Like a cuckoo leaving the world behind. She says, and we are introduced to, of course, Jonathan Harris, famous character actor who played Dr. Smith in the Lost in Space, plays just the doctor. So we'll just call him Dr. Smith here because he plays a doctor. This actually could be set before Lost in Space for all we know, because it is the Twilight Zone. And
Does that make
basically,
the tiger robot?
There you go.
yeah.
But I mean,
and
Robbie the robot does show up in a couple of Twilight Zone episodes.
Robbie Robot was an invader, that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
but he basically tries to convince her that she's just overtired and overworked, and she's one of those individuals that keeps trying to it's like, you ever watch a story where the kid tries to tell the parents about the thing and the parents don't believe them and they think it's like crying wolf or something like that? I think that's what they're trying to play off here, is like she's crying wolf, that just because she's overworked and exhausted, that this very lucid dream that she's having, we'll talk about lucid dreams in a second, but the very lucid dream she's having is just her being overworked. And that's when that's when this asshole Barney goes, Barney says he's the best, or Barney says she was the best little stripper, and then she corrects him, dancer. And I have to ask this
Dancer,
question.
Bonnie, dancer. Trashy and a stripper.
But I have to ask this question: like, it's 1961. Do you think they bleeped that out, or do you think they actually left that in there? Because stripper is kind of a word you don't hear in the 60s, like in a TV series. At least I wouldn't expect to hear that in the 1960s. I mean, now you hear it every time you turn on the TV on the news and stuff like that. But it's just. I mean, what do you guys think about that? I mean, anyone that wants to go, but like, it's crazy that they actually used the word stripper in a 1961 episode. So
I was
that's just
surprised
me.
they threw that in there, because when they were saying dancer, I was like, she's a stripper or something like that. He said stripper. I was like, oh, they actually said it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't like,
it.
but no, I don't think they did. I didn't see anything. I didn't have a chance
No.
to look at as much behind the scenes stuff as on this one as usual, but I didn't see anything that said that they bleeped or changed anything.
I think they probably would have had they said something or had they done something. I think that the mention of stripper, back then, if it would have been something where you clutch your pearls, like, oh my god, a stripper,
clutching some pearls,
oh my god, yeah, something like that. But I think it was probably just to back up the fact that it is sort of a dubious thing.
And it
Yeah.
also kind of shows that this guy is just a terrible person, terrible agent. As she says earlier, he's just a guy that is more worried about making sure she gets back on her stripping pole or something like that. And I don't know, Dan. What do you think for somebody that watches a lot of like older offbeat stuff when it comes to like horror films? And I'm sure you watched a lot of stuff back in like the the 60s and 70s and all that stuff. Did that come surprise to you as well?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it kind of struck me as very out of tone for that era of television. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, TV regulation and things like that were still very, very strict on what you could and couldn't show. So, talking about strippers on, something like this would be quite controversial. I mean, my assumption when it was said was that because I know that a lot of state by state regulators would have different rules and guidelines, that maybe they'd take the law into their own hands and either censor it or not censor it. So they just left it in, so the people who were okay with it could have it, and the people who weren't would cut it out or bleep it. But yeah, it was very unusual to see something like that at that time. Generally they'd be very modest, and like you said, they would say something like dancer rather than just going, yeah, she strips, and then just move on.
And why was it in there to start with? Like, there was nothing about the idea of what a stripper was that would change the course of where this episode goes, at least from a modern context. Maybe
I don't think it had anything to do with the episode. I think it had to do with how they were discounting
what she was saying.
What she was saying, and that didn't really have to do with being a stripper. I think that just kind of drove it home. She's just a dumb broad having dreams, thinking they're real. Let the men take over. Oh, and she's a stripper, so she's that makes her even dumber and less. Her opinion and what she's saying is even less.
Yeah,
I would also add that her like the attire, and I guess I always assumed that like maybe back in the 50s they were more lenient with like what she wore in hospital, but the fact
she's
that
wearing
she was
just her
wearing
clothes.
Yeah, essentially that's what it looked like. Like they had the picture of her, like at one point he opens up the picture of her and she's in her dance attire in the dress, and it was just like it looked exactly like what she was wearing.
Well, I thought she was almost like in an ER. Like she had just been put in there that night. That's why she was still in those clothes. She's like, I've been here for weeks. I was like, you just been in these clothes for weeks? Like these same ones? That's okay. I'm pretty sure they put you in like hospital gowns and stuff back then too.
Yeah. Well, that's what's
Mm.
also funny is they won't allow them to have tea in their episodes, but strippers just all right. It's just groovy as
Well, that's
Yeah,
dependent
baby.
upon sponsors more than anything else. So
No, I know. I just
Mm.
thought that was funny. It's like, oh no tea, no stripper. All right. Um, but kind of moving forward a little bit, I love that the Dr. Smith is trying. Like we talked about this before, and I put down that she actually says that she mentions how what are we gonna do? Talk Freud or something. I thought that was pretty funny. But Dr. Smith says it's only a dream. They, of course, talk about how it's a dream that happens in perfect chronology every time. It's happened for 6 nights. And then they bring in the night nurse to prove that she's crazy because the night nurse, of course, is not the same one as we see in this episode. But just that whole idea, like us knowing kind of the dream and the nightmare, were you guys prone to like maybe think that she was crazy, or because of the whole idea of, kind of have an idea about Final Destination? Did you guys like go, oh, maybe there's something to here? Or going to Twilight Zone, you never know when it comes to the ideas and concepts that are going to be presented. But how do you guys feel about that kind of thing?
given that it's Twilight Zone, nothing is like you say, nothing is as it appears. You knew that something was coming. I would think even then, just being that this had been going for a season and a half, if you expected like a straightforward, crime drama or sitcom or whatever,
Yeah.
you clearly haven't been watching.
Right.
Yeah. I was figuring that it was going to be some kind of shenanigans with the doctor and the nurse, and that like the big twist was going to be something along the lines of she was actually part of an experiment to see how long you could gaslight somebody or something like that. Like the big reveal was going to be like they'd just pull back and it was like a two-way mirror or something with the doctor behind it going, fascinating, she is broken after 26 days. So when it went down the path that it ended up going down, it was equally as surprising and pleasant, but it wasn't quite what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were maybe going to try and play more on the doctor and the nurse just trying to fuck with her.
Like do like Shutter Island or something.
Yeah.
Man, you guys put a lot more thought into this than me. I didn't know. I just thought some dumb broad having dreams. I really had no idea where it was going. I was just like, I don't. Obviously, there's some semblance going on here, but I don't know what it is. So I just rolled with it.
The next part is Dr. Smith tells Liz Powell to, instead of picking up the glass, don't pick it up. Actually, don't let it drop. This brings into the whole idea, and it says it even in the Wikipedia page. It talks about the whole idea of lucid dreaming. This comes into an interesting concept and idea that I was thinking about how this world is working in this episode, and the fact of, is lucid dreaming something that is very prevalent, very possible? Because if we know anything about dreaming, most of the time it sucks, and most of the time you can't affect the dream. You just kind of go with it. You're kind of like a cat. You're kind of the observer of the whole situation. So it'll lead into the other nightmare. But do you guys, what do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about that? Because lucid dreaming's not something that's very typical, and I guess unless you're in the Twilight Zone. So I thought it was interesting they bring in lucid dreaming and stuff like that. Even though they don't mention it as lucid dreaming, they actually use it as a form of therapy for the woman, for Liz Powell. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, even though it's not really that possible, I guess.
Yeah.
Could be.
I mean, I've known
Anything's
people
possible that you put your mind to, Nick.
That's true. If Jacob did that
anything you
lucid
want.
dream, the perchance to dream, he'd be right there at number 51.
No. See, they fuck with me over this. I don't bring it up. They do.
No,
It's a lucid dream, man.
You got the cup to your anus.
I'm having a lucid dream.
But yeah. What do you guys think?
I mean, I've known people in the past who have claimed that they can lucid dream and that they can just sort of control whatever goes on. I call bollocks personally, because every dream that I've ever had has been like completely out of my control. And if that's the case, how come I can't stop falling dreams? Because those motherfuckers, I hate them. So I just wish I could glide. I think it's an interesting choice, especially at this point in history when that kind of thing isn't really widely kind of done in media, to do that as an aspect, But in its execution, I thought that it was a little bit lacking, because basically there isn't really that much that is done as a result of it. It's like, you have this new power, and she does bugger all with it. Basically, she just sort of does exactly the same thing again. So yeah.
And
That's
I
right, man.
wonder, I kind of wondered, like, and this is very much like, you think about doctors of that era, it's just like, well, you know, like, doctor, I just can't stop eating. Well, just stop eating. Like, that's kind of the way that they kind of, like, doctors were with this. And
Have you
we've
considered
seen
cigarettes?
exactly
Yeah.
with this doctor, we've kind of seen that like, it is that very much like kind of writing off the fact that she's, you know, well, clearly you're dreaming, you know, we can't, you know, we have the same conversation every night, blah 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 blah. And he's just like, well, have you ever tried not doing whatever thing? I agree with you that it could be a lucid dreaming thing, but I think just as much as anything, it probably is just well, you know, don't pick up the thing, you know. So it maybe didn't go that deep, but maybe it brought up, you know, if you look at the history of it.
Well, it actually reminds me of. Do you guys care if I mention something about "Don't Worry, Darling"? You guys plan on seeing this movie at all?
Go for it.
Nah.
I don't plan on seeing it, but I just based on the trailer, I'm pretty sure I know what happens in that movie.
Oh, okay.
So go ahead.
This isn't a spoiler of the ending, but it seems like in the 1960s there was one of two options to try to calm down a patient. The one that Triv just said, and shock therapy. So I was just waiting at some point, because this happens in like Shutter Island. It happens in, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It happens in all these films in like the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, where it seems like you either not do it or we're going to give you some shock therapy. And it's funny because I was just waiting for Dr. Smith to go, she's not working, doc. She's not better, doctor, or not better, nurse. You know, I guess the shock therapy. And it cracks me up because it seems to go back to the same well of like, just why don't you just not do it? Or next we're gonna put some voltage in your brain, you know, that type of thing. So, and in the movie she gets shock therapy at like near the end of the movie. But I don't know. I just Jacob, I think I passed over you. Did you have anything extra to say on that at all? Or
No, the lucid dream thing, I don't know. I mean, can you control a dream? Me myself, when it comes to dreams, they're odd things. I mean, typically, no, you are, even though you're doing things in a dream, it's almost like they're predetermined. I don't know if you're actively doing them. There have been times that I've realized I was dreaming in a dream, and maybe you can, you know, do a little something there, but it's almost like your memory in a dream doesn't last very long. So it's like you forget that you're in a dream, and it's like the dream takes hold either way, and it's going to continue on down that road. If you somehow notice that you're in the construct, that you're having a dream, and you're like, "Ooh, I can start changing things," it's going to very quickly wipe your mind, and you're going to get back on track. So I don't know. Do I think that they could be doing lucid dreams? I mean, for the Twilight Zone, sure, why not? As far as shock therapy, yeah, of course. I mean, bring it back. I'm bringing it back. My kids get out of line. Shock therapy, bitches. And I mean, it gets people's asses in line. What would you rather do? Would you rather you want plan A or plan shock the fuck out of you? I mean, you have choices.
You forgot plan C, lobotomy.
Oh yeah,
there's
lobotomy as well.
Lobotomy.
Yeah,
Very continental.
Yes.
Right.
I'm on board with all of these.
But
Mommy, what's that hole through your temple? Nothing.
Don't worry about it.
What was wrong with just the 19th century prescription of cocaine and dildos? Please, can we not just get back to that?
I'm game.
I'm down. Cocaine and dildos.
Ooh.
Sounds like a new age country song.
It does. Well, you know, everything that's old is now new. So
this is true. This is true.
Mm.
So anyways, going on to the right before the so we gotta talk about this. So the act break happens as she wakes up. She is trying to lucid dream herself into picking up a cigarette, which she does, and she still knocks over the glass, so it doesn't really work very well. She walks out in the hallway and of course walks towards the elevator, and the act breaks at 16 minutes and 18 seconds into the episode. That is a lot of episode to talk about before the end of the episode, because the episode is only 24 minutes long. I had to ask you guys, like, for 16 minutes and 18 seconds, were you riveted at all, or did you just go, what the hell? That was a long ass segment. I don't know. I was like, holy shit. So I actually, because I had to check this, I'm like, when's the act break happening? And you think it would happen like when she, either gets like after the second nightmare or after the first nightmare. No, 16 minutes and 18 seconds later, that's when the act break happens.
It was an odd choice to go there. She also she lights a cigarette, and then the cigarette goes out of shot and doesn't come back. So my assumption is that the theater or the hospital caught fire.
But she killed everybody. It is all a dream. It's like one of them final moments dreams in her head.
There you go.
She lit the hospital on fire. Everybody's dead. It's a lucid dream. Her head's been cut off. They're freezing it. And at the end, after the plane explodes, she's on top of a building. And if she wants to come out and save, go back to reality, she has to jump off a building.
So Inception?
So pretty much Vanilla Sky is what you're saying.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. I came up with it all.
Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. What were we talking about?
Exactly.
The second.
Oh yeah, no. The act break.
Second going on the dream scene, yeah, up to the act break.
The act break happens
21.
22. I mean, the fact that we went back, the thing that annoyed me the most about the second lap through the dream into the act break was just the fact that it was so the same. Like, it would have been nice if she'd have maybe tried more than once to influence the dream. Like she got off on the second floor and, went and got something from the canteen rather than the basement or whatever. The fact that it literally played out exactly the same after that one glass, it was basically the bare minimum that they could have done to say, oh, well, she tried. And compounding the issue as well, at the very end of the dream, she screams, and there was something going on with the audio recording for that scream because it could strip paint. It was that loud. It was just aggressively in my ears, which was fun.
You heard you heard the ringing in your ears, right? That was a decibel you lost while watching this episode. Congratulations, you are now part of the fifth dimension. So.
Yay!
But yeah, I think I just kind of, once it got past that first attempt and I realized that she wasn't going to try to do anything different, and it was just like that was it. I kind of went, oh, okay, well, I'll sit through that. And then when it got into the break, because I'm still kind of feeling out when these breaks kind of happen, because obviously I've only watched a handful of episodes, it did seem quite late in the day, but it wasn't something where I was like, oh, okay.
Well, do you think it kind of reflects, and maybe I'm overthinking, but it kind of reflects she puts up the big words of, towards Barney and towards the doc and stuff, but then it's like she gives up. And you're talking, 6 or 7 nights of the same dream where you don't know what you're doing and stuff. So it would probably be a progressive thing where you'd try more as you go. But for the sake of a 24-minute broadcast, the fact that she didn't do more, like, oh, well, that failed, I guess I'm stuck in the dream. Like, she didn't do anything to kind of improve.
You lazy broad.
Get back to your Stanson.
Honestly, as far as the act break, like when we get up to the act break, it did seem like it took for fucking ever to get there. And this episode, while it started out and it had me kind of like, I was like, okay, what's going on here? What's up with this dream? After that, not a lot happens, which is shortly after the act break. They do that whole try, to change the dream thing, but it's like super low energy. And like you guys said, they're like, okay, I'll try. Oh, I did. That was too much. And then it's just the same fucking thing over again. We just watch the exact same. And the whole time you're like, okay, she's going to try something. No, not that time. She's going to try something different. Maybe she won't get on the. Okay, she got on the elevator. Maybe she won't walk down the hall. Okay, she went down the hall. Maybe the lady, she won't scream. She's screaming. But what are you doing different? All you did was not reach for the glass, but you still knocked over the fucking glass, which I get that. Why even show that whole dream again? And it's just like, okay, we watched this dream again. And then she's being released.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's the funny, weird ass part is like they sedate her and then they go, this is what I thought was gonna be interesting. And they just kind of gloss over is like Dr. Smith's looking at the chart and the nurse comes up, the night nurse, after they've given her like a bunch of sedated drugs and stuff like that. And they're talking about how really it is odd that she was able to figure out the morgue down in room 22 and nobody's allowed down there. And then like like he walks towards the elevator and you think he's gonna like go down there, maybe something's like off, but then it shoots over to she's now fine. So all they need to do was give her drugs. Like there's no definition of like time how long that she was there for. Why is she all of a sudden fine? Like, did they do a whole? Is there a whole deleted segment that I'm sure Dan will find at some point that that will explain this? Like, it doesn't. It feels like they were rushed to get to the ending, which is what I think is the coolest part about the episode. But they were rushed to get her to the unfortunate place that is known as Miami Beach. And I just that's where my problem. I like this episode a lot. I like the idea, especially when it comes to the ending. But you got to question that, why is it 16 minutes of all this nonsense going on? And then the stuff that could be kind of interesting is like it's like a minute and a half long, and then you finally get to the conclusion, which is actually quite lengthy for a conclusion. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, because it's really weird. Like, not going into the actual ending, but it's just really weird.
That was my biggest problem with this episode. I think this is a third from the sun situation, which we'll get into the ending. I won't spoil it, but it had a really interesting, cool ending. And the ending was a payoff to earlier in the episode, but earlier in the episode was just, they set some stuff up, but not a lot happened. It was just like stuff happening. I wasn't bored out of my mind or anything, but I was just kind of like, there's not really much going on. There's zero other payoffs. There's not like a mystery that they really, there's a mystery, but they present the mystery in the beginning and then nothing until the end. They don't like explore that, which that's what they could have done when she's having that dream and she's trying to change things. They could have explored that more there, even if they could have still ended at the same place, because that's the whole idea behind the dream. But maybe have her like trying to change things, but showing how the dream always brings it back around, like the glass. Well, because that's what I thought it was going to do. Was she tried to not do the glass and it still got knocked over? I was like, okay, it's just going to be her trying to change these things, but that would have been fine. They're trying something, but no, they just did that once and kept on going. The bulk of this episode,
it's a lot of talk without a lot of purpose.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
let me
a lot going on.
Let me ask you guys this question. Now, Dan, I'm sorry I keep cutting you off. Do you think it was because of the videotape problem, because they decided to save money, that this is why it's so weirdly paced, or do you think?
Nah,
you don't think that's?
I don't know. Done this a few times. Right. I'm not saying the episode's terrible because of it, but it's done that whole have a banger of an ending that really pays off, and the ending is made up for the rest of the episode on a few occasions. Yeah. And the episode's not terrible. I mean, we've watched some terrible episodes, but the episode's just kind of whatever. This is fine. And then the ending comes along and it's like, oh, it just elevated the episode quite a bit. Yeah. And they've done that a few times. Like I said, Third from the Sun, most famously for me, it's one of those ones that on initial inspection, I'm like, yeah, this is a great episode. And then I get to thinking about it. You guys mentioned it. Yeah, but what else happened in the episode?
Weird, creepy,
not much.
Wilson guy.
Weird Wilson guy. That's it. Not really much going on. It just had an amazing ending. That's kind of how I look at this one. It's just had a great ending, and the rest of the episode was just kind of whatever.
I mean, I think like Nick said earlier, I think that this episode kind of became a bit of a victim of the era it was made, a victim of its own circumstance, because at that time it was presumed that people watching were idiots and that they had to be spoon-fed everything, because if something was missed off, people would go, but that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because Jonathan Harris goes into talking about the dream. I'm like, why are you telling me about the dream I just witnessed? You don't have to do that. You're wasting time here, people. You only 24 minutes and you spend 16 of them telling me about the story. So
this is the thing.
And I think thought people were stupid back then. When actually they're stupid nowadays. They need to do that nowadays.
Well, this is the thing. I think if this episode had been made using more modern film techniques, what you'd have got is the dream in full the first time around, and then the second time you'd have more or less got an edited highlights. They wouldn't have literally had to show you her creeping down the corridor again and going into the lift and standing in the lift and getting out of the lift. And they would have just given you like her in a room, she drops the glass, it doesn't work, she goes to leave a room, and then she cuts and she's in the lift going down to the thing, and that would have saved probably about 3 to 5 minutes possibly, where they could have then had like a nice transitional scene showing her more recovered than she was but still not well, and that would have helped smooth over that last act. But yeah, it is a bit jarring to have them just go from sedate her to get out of our hospital, here's your bill.
Gave her drugs, she's okay now.
Yes.
Yeah. Now with a side order of malpractice as well, because when they're on the way to kick her out, the doctor turns to her and goes, "And next time I see you, I'll be on the front row of your next performance, and I'd appreciate a subtle wink." And I'm just like, "You are so fired. You are so sued."
Even
I better
then,
get a private lap dance.
Well, there was also a good, not so much sexicon word, but kind of a sexicon phrase.
What's that?
what was it, Dan? You couldn't boost
Oh
morale.
yes. So I didn't know whether we were going to do this towards the end or not. I've got a little list of ones I've collected throughout, but
do you want to wait
yeah,
until the end with that?
I can run through them if you want to just have them for record or not, or we can wait till the end. It's up to you guys.
Your call.
Yeah, if you
Go
want to read
for
them,
it.
go right ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So there was a bit at the very beginning where Barney turns up and she says that he hasn't visited for a while, and she feels upset that he's abandoned her effectively, and she says something along the lines of, "You think I left it at the bus station?" Her feelings. There's another one where she's talking to the doctors and she says, "Why don't you guys get off the dime?" The one that Triv's just mentioned was, "You couldn't boost morale if it weighed a quarter pound and you had a derrick."
Yeah, which I didn't understand at all. Was that I was like, what
So,
the fuck?
According
What the hell's
to
a derrick?
let me look it up here quick. That way I can be precise in this. So by what I'm assuming is the standards of this, they mean an easygoing, affable person. But you could also go. Let's see here. All right, a man who knows how to treat a woman, a funny yet understanding guy. But you could also go a good-looking dude who has a big dick, and he gets girls to think he's funny. Then there's
Similar to
also
a
a
Jake.
sexy, charming, light-skinned black guy with money. He's got a tongue game with the ladies.
It's me.
An absolutely top-tier human being. A real man who knows how to treat a woman with respect. A German word for compulsion. No, wait, that's not it. Sorry. A cool, sexy, dark caramel black guy with a giant penis who loves to be loved.
That's me.
So all kinds of horniness is what you're saying.
Basically, yes. There's also a dirty Derek, but I won't go into that because I don't want to get your channel
Ooh.
demonetized.
Oh, it's been
Ooh.
demoted. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's funny they're going to. I know Miami Beach has always been a hot spot for celebrities. I don't know why she's going to Miami Beach. Maybe she's going to strip down there or something like that. I don't know entirely. No, but she makes her way to the airport, and of course there's a guy just staring at her, and she says the man staring has eyes like a tarantula. She asks him why he's doing that. He's like, he's just not really talking, but. This is when we start getting the big premonition revelations and stuff like that. She gets her ticket on flight 22. This is why I was asking about the clock, because it's 8:10 p.m., which I'm assuming it was 8:10 p.m. or whatever time it was. I don't know specifically. No, she starts talking in VOD or VOD. She starts talking, voiceover. This crazy feeling of being awake and thirsty, and of course she's thirsty, and it's a dream. This isn't a dream. The ticking clock is really loud. Of course, runs into a woman and drops a vase, the dropping glass. She, of course, walks out and starts walking towards, the plane that she's getting ready to fly to Miami Beach. And she starts walking up the steps like she kind of does it slowly, like she did in the nightmare. And of course, the night nurse, the woman that we see in the nightmare, is the flight attendant, the stewardess, I guess you could say. I don't know what they're being PC about now. So, and she screams and runs away, of course, like she would. And I love the look that the attendant gives. The attendant gives her. She's like,
This
and
bitch.
yeah, this crazy woman.
Another one.
I know. And she also says, "We have one more spot for you, honey." I'm like, wait, she already has a ticket. What do you mean she has one more spot? That makes no sense. Anyways,
Room for one more.
yeah, like why is she? It's like she's death or something like that. I don't know, but anyways, they're trying to comfort Pal. This is when the flight Final Destination stuff comes into it. They're trying to comfort her, and she watches as the plane explodes into a very cheap looking fireball. She has basically saved herself from dying on a plane, which is, like I said, Final Destination. And yeah, so in essence, she was saved by Tony Todd, because Tony Todd saved her.
Mhm.
And later death will come to her in the form of Nan Adams and kill her, because death will never be happy with the fact she escaped death. And that's the end of the episode. So it's quite the ending
Nan
for an
Adams
episode
is
that yeah, Nan Adams is dead
Bringer of death.
by 1956 Plymouth
Fury.
Yeah. So we'll go with that. Okay, so that's the ending, and as Jacob has alluded to, is very much a third from the sun or elegy type ending, where it's like, Okay, I guess that means what it means, and that is a crazy ending. And the idea of premonitions and the idea of like what would happen if you could see. It's weird that like a plane explodes, so that's how she like this how this nightmare it coincides with. It doesn't make any sense, but what do you guys think? What do you think of that ending? What do you think of the episode?
Definitely a banger ending. Like literally, it goes up in flames.
Yeah, with the best looking superimposed fireball you'll ever see in your entire life.
Oh, the best
Mhm.
1960s explosion based around a show that's an anthology hosted by a guy called Rod Serling I have seen in the past 24 hours.
It was positively Thunderbirds.
Wow.
Yeah,
High praise.
you could almost see the stick of the airplane just like moving up as it's flying away.
All that was needed was for someone to turn around, look at the camera, take off their glasses, and go, "What an explosive experience!"
It was a bad explosion.
I like how we're like giving all this explanation. Jake was like, it was bad. That's why I love Jake.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
So
but
Judge Judy does not approve.
She does not. She won't allow it.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Anyways, what do you guys think? Like, I mean, outside of the bad fireball sequence and Man Adams and stuff like that, but what do you guys think?
According to the companion, this was the acting was very wooden, and nobody remembers it fondly.
Well, she's a stripper. Of course, it's wooden.
Yeah. Yes. So, 22.
I have conflicted feelings about the ending of this episode, honestly. I think it's a very interesting and unique for the time way of ending the episode. I certainly can't think of any other show that would introduce the concept of skipping death through premonition in that way.
Right.
That being said, there are tonal ways to deal with this. And I think had they gone for something a bit more realistic and subtle, it probably would have paid off a little bit better, in my opinion, rather than going down the bombastic route. I mean, like, for example, say she'd stepped out of the hospital and a car that had a 22 on the license plate came out, or she left at 8:15 or something and nearly hit her, and she jumped out the way, and the driver was the woman who was in the morgue or something. That would have been more subtle and probably a bit more muted, but would have been more of a, that's what it is kind of thing. Whereas having the actual sort of bombastic, crappy plane explosion extraordinaire after 20 odd minutes of what could best be described as soap opera hospital drama.
It was literally soap
comes out of
opera
nowhere.
hospital drama.
Yeah. It sort of came out of nowhere, which the bad movie side of my brain loves that and thinks it's just so ridiculous that it's amazing. But the actual sort of person who appreciates film and television as a medium and an art form did a little cry inside. So I'm kind of torn with it. I think on one hand, it's a fun and clever way to end the episode, but at the exact same time, part of me really thinks that subtlety probably would have landed a little bit better in terms of narrative.
Yeah.
So
I think I already kind of said I thought the ending was fun. It was good. I thought it was a good payoff for what you're getting. I mean, they could have done it a little bit better, but overall I was fine with the ending. I do think that once you started seeing that, oh, okay, she's hearing the crash, the clock, the woman, all that stuff, as she's walking up to the big reveal of the woman saying room for one more, who didn't know that? Who didn't? All Final Destination aside, as she's walking up those stairs and the music's swelling, who didn't know that it was going to be the mortician woman? She was going to bust out and be like, room for one more, honey. I mean, we all knew that.
But,
I think I don't know if they knew it or not. I think they knew that we knew because it is done so dramatically with this long walk up to it. But I mean, that's fine. It is cool. And the comical fireball explosion. I was actually surprised that they showed that. I thought it was just going to talk about how it crashed her. But yeah, I was cool with that. I thought it was a good a decent payoff, and it was the rest of the episode. It's just nothing was really happening. They had opportunities to have some things happen had they explored the dream, even if they didn't change the dream. like maybe with her trying to change the dream, if they had leaned into that more or something like that. But nothing else really happened. We didn't gain much of anything from all the dialogue that they had. We did not need to know her character that much to know what would knowing her character any more or less. How would that have changed the ending of the show? The plane, exploding and her dodging that bullet. It wouldn't have changed anything. So what little character development they had, they spent a lot of time, I felt like, trying to develop a character, but they didn't really develop the character. She's a stripper who acts stupid, and she's surrounded by a bunch of shitbags.
Yeah.
I didn't need you to spend 20 minutes telling me that.
Yeah.
And she's having the same dream over and over.
Yeah, I think they could have streamlined a lot of the stuff to make more interesting. Like, I thought the whole stuff with, Jonathan Harris, it felt so contrived for what it was doing. I really liked this episode, but when you have to look at it like from a critical perspective, it really starts to fall apart. Just in the ideas of like, this woman is being told, as Jacob said, she's crazy and she's ditzy, and she calls her asshole agent, Barney, in a like weird, squeaky voice and stuff like that. And I don't know, leading up to the ending, I like it, but it's just like, it just feels like so much good payoff for not a good story. It's weird. I don't know, Triv.
Well, the stories the payoff is all there is.
Yeah,
it's just payoff. There's nothing else. I mean, there's nothing else that this thing has to offer. It sets it up in the very beginning, and then we get payoff. That's it for me.
It's so weird. But Triv, what about you?
I think that this story, it's like we run into from time to time. There was a decent idea up front that got bogged down in quite a few details, and then they pull it out at the end with a decent ending. Everything is bombastic. Everything from like the over the top way that Liz, is dealing with stuff, to the bombastic way that the doctors and everybody, they're just, horny assholes, to the, over the top plane explosion. I think that this concept have been done better if it was on a Garth Marenghi's Dark Place episode.
Absolutely.
You know what's gonna happen now that we're talking? What you said, Darth Marenghi. The other day I got like 4 to 5 suggestions for Dark Marenghi. That series. It just came up on my feed, and now we're talking about it. Hey, maybe this is 22. Maybe I'm a premonition about Dark.
And for reference, Darth Marenghi's Dark Place was like I think it was a 1 season, like really taking itself seriously hospital drama where all kinds of crazy shit happens, but it was done on a super low budget. It looks like shit and it's funny.
It's very solid. It was very badly neglected by the channel that made it. They pumped a load of money into it, advertised it for 1 week, and then they dumped it in the graveyard slot and completely forgot about it. And it's one of the funniest comedies I think was made in the early 2000s. It's just so ridiculous. Basically, it's like think of your sort of standard 80s hospital drama, and then add more explosions, guns, and Planet of the Apes references, and you're not that far off. It's so much fun. Definitely recommend.
There's a scene where a giant sentient eye has sex with a guy.
Sounds like the 4th season
and then
of
gives
the Twilight
birth.
Zone.
And then the guy gives birth to a smaller eye, and one of the doctors takes it on as his new adopted son because his previous son, who was a grasshopper, jumped too high and severed his head off on a helicopter.
What?
It's very much Kingdom Hospital. It's very like Stephen King in the 80s kind of a thing.
I don't know. Stephen King may have wrote it on coke. Were they on coke when they did this?
They were high on life, my friend.
No, it was the studio execs that were on coke because they decided not to continue it. So, but
Was there a time when they're not on coke?
No, probably not. Probably not. They were especially on coke when they decided to do a 4th season with an hour-long episodes of the Twilight Zone. So
yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So okay. So with that said, I think we all are kind of mixed on this episode. I mean, I enjoy it probably more than you guys, just on the simple fact that I watched this episode a lot. But Jacob, hit us with the 2-paragraph closing narration, which is quite short. Thank God for once.
Yeah.
Right. Miss Elizabeth Powell, professional dancer, hospital diagnosis, acute anxiety brought on by overwork and fatigue. Prognosis: with rest and care and drugs, she'll probably recover. But the cure to some nightmares is not to be found in known medical journals. You look for it under Potions for Bad Dreams, to be found in the Twilight Zone.
And potions are because anal.
Because anal.
Yeah, I mean, that's 22. 22. That's the episode in a nutshell. It very, very traditional, very by the books closing narration. Nothing too out, I know Triv, you said a couple of weeks ago, like he always comes out with like some of the great narrations when it comes to writing, but it's just like, okay, go. You said, no diagnosis in the regular world, so it's probably in the Twilight Zone under Potions for Bad Dreams. So
it fits but honestly, this narration fits the episode. It's kind of
yeah. So,
yeah.
Okay, so anyways, before we get into the Twilight Zone list, I do have a new segment. It won't take very long. Dan, unfortunately, you're excluded from this because you have not watched a lot of Twilight. Because you haven't watched a lot of Twilight Zone episodes. But trust me, you'll be happy you don't have to worry about this anyway. So I thought it'd be fun as kind of a cool little trivia thing where I want to see if you guys know the episode based off Rod Serling's narration. This is an opening narration, so I want to see if you can guess. I'm going to exclude the name of the person.
Is this ones that we've already watched?
Yes, this is. I won't put in like the Obsolete Man or something like that, or anything in the fourth season, because we won't talk about the fourth season. But no, okay. But I'm gonna if it has a name in it, I'm gonna exclude the name because you know the name of the character. But the first one,
unacceptable.
Unacceptable. He's like invaders. Anyways, I just want to see if you guys know it. I just want to kind of, if you don't like this, we can.
I can barely remember the names of the ones we've watched. Usually. I'm always like, what was the one with the guy who did the thing?
Oh yeah, that one was a great one.
What's great about some of these narrations is you may not be able to guess it just from the narration, but this is the one I picked. So it reads as Jacob I would usually have you read these, but I'm going to try to read these, which never goes very well. So
yay.
As I did before Jacob came on. Okay, so it reads 12 o'clock noon, an ordinary scene in ordinary city. Lunchtime for thousands of ordinary people. To most of them, this hour will be a rest. This hour will be a rest. Pleasant break in a day's routine.
Ooh! I know.
I know too.
Let me. Hey! Whoa! Let me. Oh shit! I forgot. Okay, so to most, but not all. So let me ask Jacob if he remembers this. To most, but not all. To blank, time is an enemy, and the hour to come is a matter of life and death.
Time enough at last? No. I'm just looking for things with time in the title.
Misa, please.
Well,
me.
This should actually help out Jacob.
Monkey show we got going on here.
Well, if Dan knows it, that kind of limits it to the episodes that he's seen.
Well, that would be that one that we watched with Dan,
or
the Perchance to Dream.
Ding. I forgot that you guys had just watched this film.
I wasn't involved. See, I remember the narration of the ones I've read.
Okay, so
congratulations, Jacob. Your prize this week is a year's supply of cow can. The cow in a can. I don't know what it is, but I eat so much of it.
Okay, so this will get more streamlined when I remember what episodes Jacob was on. I don't know. I thought that was kind
everything of after 11 and 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just figured do something cool, see if you guys remember the actual episodes. So maybe it'll continue. I don't know. We'll see.
Yay.
Anyway, so yeah, Perchance to Dream. It was the opening narration. The main character was named Edward Hall, and we won't talk about Perchance to Dream for quite a while. So
until the next episode.
Okay, so let's go ahead and head into the last segment, which of course is the Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest list ever known to man. Even if you like lists, you'll never find one better. So yeah, where do we put this episode? I know this is probably going to be about 30 apparently, so maybe I'm wrong. Like, I definitely know this isn't better than like the After Hours. I can tell you that it's 25. So
I'm kind of limited on where on my knowledge of this, but I'm looking at the list. The two that I've seen are fairly close together, so it kind of gives me a good idea of whether it's better or not. I think I would probably put it below A Most Unusual Camera. I think that
I
one.
thought
I
a
think it's
most
close.
unusual camera was more entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I
I
think
know
it was
this.
close to it, but
This is where I'm thinking. Let me ask you this, Jacob and Triv. Do you think this is better than Third from the Sun? With the same, with what we've been talking about the episode a lot this episode. So
Man, they are very similar
yeah.
in that way that not a lot's going on, and then bam, banger ending. As far as their endings, I think that Third from the Sun, I like that ending more. I thought that's tough.
well, I mean, if you think it's better, the Third from the Sun's better. We got like Escape Clause, we got The Last Flight, When the Sky Was Open.
I really loved Escape Clause. I know that was kind of our go-to for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I would say right underneath Escape. The Lonely had a better overall, like The Lonely had a banger ending, but also
literally a
good
banger ending because she got banged in the,
yeah,
in the
she
head.
did.
Took it to the face.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually Jacob's. That was your first episode, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Episode 8.
I mean, do you think this is like above The Lonely, below The Lonely? Like King Nine Will Not Return? I thought it was
You're
just a
gonna
boring...
below The Lonely?
Yes, I am.
Below The Lonely.
You don't know what I do in my spare time, Triv.
That's true. I don't, and I
Below
thank you
Lonely.
very much to keep it that way. No offense.
Below the Lonely was my favorite Roy Orbison song.
But was it your favorite Bowie song?
I'll get back to you.
Bowie Below the Lonely.
It was my favorite.
Belowy.
It was my favorite, Weird Al Yankovic redo of the Lonely episode, Below the Lonely.
Weird Al, Below the Lonely.
Here's where I'm looking at, and when the Last Flight was, of course, the guy who comes back from the future, or comes back from past, goes whatever. It's the one with the World War I pilot.
I think that one more than this one.
Oh, you like that? I was gonna say I didn't like.
Well, you hated that episode. I liked it more than this one. I thought there was more going on, and it was just more compelling.
And When the Sky Was Open, is that the one where the pilots disappear, or is that?
Yeah,
that would slowly disappear as it goes on.
Yeah, I like that better than this episode. Okay, so let me ask you this: The Lonely, probably a better episode. Is this better than King Nine Will Not Return? Because King Nine Will Not Return is a boring episode. I'm gonna be fairly honest.
It didn't have a banger ending. Yeah, I would
think
say
this is better than King 9.
Yeah, I mean, what if we put it between Lonely and King 9?
I mean, I wouldn't, like I said, like I still enjoy the episode, but like if we were talking about just like, where you from a critical standpoint, it's pretty low on the list. But
I mean, I enjoyed the Mighty Casey, but generally speaking, it wasn't that great of an episode. And I enjoy a thing about machines, but from a critical perspective, it's not that great of an episode.
Yeah, I mean,
I rate these things based on how much did I like it. It's a mix of like, did I like it just on a carnal level, and also just critically I look at it. But I didn't hate this episode. I didn't like it. I'd rather watch The Lonely than this, but I'd rather watch this more than what was the other one?
King 9.
Yeah, King 9. King 9 I thought was pretty boring, and the end was really sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to a point where we have King 9, The Big Tall Wish, A Shot in Arrow into the Air, Mr. Dent on Doomsday, The Lateness of the Hour, Long Live Walter Jameson. We're getting to like the dregs. So this is like right before the dregs. This is right, in that zone of, if they were to show it on New Year's Day or Sci-Fi Channel or something like that, you wouldn't be hesitate to watch. I don't know. I wouldn't be hesitate to watch it. So I would watch it just something to watch. It's not like when the Invaders or Eye of the Beholder or Monster Do on Maple Street come on, you're like, fuck yeah, I have 30 minutes to carve out, that type of thing. So but anyways, so you want to do between The Lonely and King 9 Will Not Return?
I think so.
I'm cool with it.
Dan, for not knowing any of these episodes, are you fine with that?
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that.
Cool. Okay, so that was pretty easy. I wasn't sure how far this was going to go up or down. So get it up or down elevator.
Below the Lonely.
I could create some controversy if you like. Let's put it above the Purple Testament. There we go. That's the one. We'll put it there.
Jacob, you're doing your best. Damon Wayans in that military movie he's in.
Oh, Sergeant Payne.
Major Pain.
Yeah,
Or we
Major
could do what's his name from Back to the Future?
Oh, Crispin Glover.
Yeah, Crispin Glover.
George McFly. Okay, so with that said, new number 37 is going to be 22. Number 1 still Eye of the Beholder. Number 52 is our beloved The Trouble with Templeton, which I know Alex does not like, which I think is pretty funny. Anyways, love you, Alex. I still think it's funny.
Mwah.
Yeah, exactly. So, with that said, the next episode that's the finish of episode 17 of season 2, which is 22. The next episode I think is a fun
Should
episode.
they have made this episode 22? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, probably it would have made sense. It would in the scheme of things. Probably this is probably why Rod Serling got this so deflated. He's like, it's not the upper management, the execs. It's the fact that we didn't put 22 at episode 22. So.
Or episode 22 of season 2.
Yeah. So the next episode, it's another one of those. Why didn't they put this as like episode blah blah blah? It's season 2, episode 18. It's a fun episode. It's not a great episode, but it's the Odyssey of Flight 33. It's directed by, I don't know if this name's correct, but it says Justice Adis. I may be one of those like, I don't know if that's the actual director, but because it's in red, so I don't know. Anyways, it's written by Rod Serling, premiered on February 24th, 1961. Has a shit ton of people in it, including John Anderson, Paul Comey, Sandy Kenyon, Hart McGuire, and Beverly Brown. It's what I call the Langoliers episode, and you'll understand when you watch the episode what I mean by that. Yeah, with that said, that is the conclusion of our talk of 22. So, Dan, thank you for coming on again. I know we were trying to get you on for the Invaders, but unfortunately, scheduling in England, according to America, is like, we were talking about in text back and forth about they should just make everyone have the same time because it would make more sense. None of this, 8 o'clock in the morning should be like 12 o'clock at night type of thing. So,
just have a universal streaming time. Just set a new time zone where somebody will go, it's 4 o'clock stream time, and everybody then knows that it's like that's the time, 4 o'clock, and you can just have a clock set. Like for people to do that, but
we'll call it
pain in the ass.
Morbid time.
Yeah.
What time is it? It's morbid time.
But anyways, thank you for coming on. Once again, you are awesome. Even though you've never really watched the Twilight Zone before, you actually brought some interesting commentary on it, so I do appreciate it. But with your channel and where you do your videos, where can they find that at?
Well, thank you so much again for having me on board. You guys are all absolute bastards, and I hate you as always. No, you're all lovely, really.
Hey, you've done more videos
but next time,
than Ben now.
Yeah. Well, next time, if I could get some rope made with silk, that would be so much nicer. This coarse stuff chafes me so.
Dude, it's basic cotton. What do you want me to do on short notice?
Plan better.
You're getting nylon next time.
Yeah, exactly. And a ball gag.
Okay,
he'll like that.
So you can find me on YouTube. My channel is TYTD Reviews. We're currently just starting a new season. By the time this episode goes out, we should be doing our Halloween specials, and we're doing a series, a themed month on Poundland horror movies, which are basically films that are knockoffs of main franchise films. And we've got one, I think it'll be the week this goes out, called Stranger, a Soulmate of Chucky, which is a film trying to jump on the back of the Child's Play series, despite the fact it does not have a killer doll or a killer or anything to do with the paranormal. It's
so like American version of Asylum.
Yeah, basically. We're going through all of those kind of films. So we're doing things like Halloween Night. It's like Halloween, but not. It's a shame
instead.
Absolutely. It's that kind of level of blatant lying to sell your product sort of level stuff, which is always great.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame, really, because I was hoping to cover. I ordered a copy of the Bollywood version of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's called Macaul. And it unfortunately hasn't turned up in time to cover it, but I'll be doing that one probably soon too. But yes, I'm on YouTube under TYTD Reviews, and I'm also on Twitter under TYTD Reviews. And do feel free to stop by and say hi. I'm always happy to talk about obscure and redundant formats and terrible, terrible movies.
Excellent.
I do have a real quick question. Did you say that this movie rides Chucky?
Yes, basically. So in America, it's called Sweet Insanity, but for some absolutely insane reason, when it came to the UK, the distribution label looked at this. It's basically it's more in line with I Know What You Did Last Summer than Child's Play. They took one look at it and went, you know what, this film needs marketing that makes it look like a Chucky film. So they've got like a killer doll on the box, and the back of the film, the blurb sort of makes it very implicit that there's a killer doll in the movie. And then you put it in, and all the menus are stylized to look like a Child's Play film type thing. And you hit play, and it's literally just like an hour of psychodrama about a girl in college who has split personalities. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever found.
Nice.
It's great. No, it's awful. But yeah, it's very bizarre.
Excellent. Triv, I know you do videos every once in a while. I know you're very busy. I joke with you about, the fact that you haven't done a video recently, but you have plenty of great videos on your channel already, and we love the videos you put up there. So where can they find that content at?
Is the answer yes?
Just say
occasionally, hopefully soon, I will have new content out. You can find me here on YouTube at Trivial Theater, also on Twitter at Trivial Theater. Keep an be because there will be stuff dropping, I promise, sooner than later.
And Jacob,
Yes.
you and we do things sometimes. I know
Ooh.
you have content.
Don't tell everybody our business.
Well, that's for the Patreon, so I have to promote our Patreon, which is DD. Anyways, yeah.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, Jacob, your
Nice.
content, where can they find it at?
You find my content at Jacob Anders Reviews over on YouTube's, where I have a weekly show. That's twice weekly for you guys out there that didn't know. You can come in and see me and Nick and sometimes Triv and other people talk about entertainment news and other sultry things. It's really steamy and hot and sexy. Come and check it out. You won't be disappointed. It's every Wednesday and Saturday at 2:00 Central Time, whatever that is where you live.
Lovely.
Do it now. Do it.
Do it.
Do
Do it.
Spiffy.
Do it.
Do it.
I think he's telling me not to do it.
Typical British asshole.
That's
Anyways,
me.
with that said, you can reach me at Movie Emporium. That's where my content, including these videos of the Fifth Dimension, are held. Twitter, all that good stuff. So without further ado, we will be heading out. And for myself, Dan.
Yes, Nick. What seems to be the problem?
For myself, yeah. Sounds good. Good stuff right there.
I know that's going to be at the end of the episode. But for 3 hours of recording, that's the last. I finally found the segment. But for myself, Dan, Triv, and Jacob, we'll see you guys next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Motherfuckers.
Kalima.
Yes, let's do this. Let's do it. Do it. Is this a podcast for ants?
What is this?
Bill Brasky was a son of a bitch.
Da bears.
Da bears.
Yeah, we have Dan is now a Mike Ditka convert. He's not a Ditka phone, but
he's now my specialist subject. You can ask me any question about Mike Ditka, and I will be able to give you a 100% true answer.
All right.
What is Ditka's mustache made of?
Fibrous materials.
It's made of the silk of gods.
Yes.
25% nylon.
You can take it off and throw it as like a batarang to catch criminals.
Ooh.
And all he has to do is like wiggle. He actually grants wishes.
Yeah.
Yes. He has to wiggle it in a specific way though, because if he doesn't do it quite right, he teleports to Soldier Stadium.